My name is Rosie, and for most of my life I believed I was living in a fairy tale. I grew up in a big, beautiful house, surrounded by sparkling chandeliers, colorful gardens, and every luxury you could imagine. My father, Henry Williams, was a successful businessman, and we were one of the richest families in the city. Life felt perfect. People often told me I had a happy and cheerful personality. They said my smile could light up a room. But my real happiness came from love, not money. I was deeply in love with Ethan, a kind and humble artist. Ethan loved to paint, and his gentle heart made me fall for him. We dreamed of a simple life together, far away from the big house and fancy parties of my family. But fairy tales, as I soon learned, do not last forever. One evening, as I was sitting by the fountain in our garden, my father called me into his study. His face was pale, and his eyes looked worried. He hesitated for a moment before telling me something that changed my life. "Rosie," he began, his voice shaking. "I have made some terrible mistakes. I have been gambling, hoping to win back some money, but instead I lost everything. The house, the business, all of it is gone. We are about to lose everything." My heart sank. My father, my hero, looked so broken and ashamed. "But that's not all," he continued. "I borrowed money from George Blackwood, one of the richest men in the city. He has given me an ultimatum. Either I repay the debt, or I go to prison." I sat in shock. Finally, I asked, "How much time do we have?" "There's no time," he said, his voice heavy with sadness. "But there is one way out." I looked at him, confused. He avoided my gaze as he said, "George has offered to forgive the debt if you agree to marry him." The room felt like it was spinning. Marry George Blackwood? He was much older than me and known for being cold and controlling. Worst of all, it meant giving up my love for Ethan. "I can't," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "I love Ethan." "I know, Rosie," my father said, his voice breaking. "But if you don't do this, I will go to prison. Our family will lose everything." That night, I sat alone in my room, torn between my love for Ethan and my duty to my father. The thought of my father in prison broke my heart. By the next morning, I had made my decision. I met Ethan in the park where we often spent time. His face lit up when he saw me, but his smile faded when he noticed my tears. "What's wrong, Rosie?" he asked, his voice full of concern. Through my sobs, I told him everything. Ethan's hands tightened into fists as he listened. He looked heartbroken and angry. "You can't do this," he said. "We'll find another way. We'll fight this together." "There is no other way," I said, choking back tears. "This is the only way to save my father." Ethan held me close, and for a moment, I wished I could stay in his arms forever. But I knew I couldn't. I pulled away, whispered goodbye, and walked away from the love of my life. The wedding was a grand event. The city's richest people attended, dressed in their finest clothes. But behind my veil I was crying. George, happy with his new bride, didn't notice my sadness. He had saved my family, but he had also taken my freedom. Life with George was cold and lonely. Our house was huge and filled with beautiful things, but it felt like a prison. I spent my days painting, the only thing that brought me peace. But even while painting, I couldn't stop thinking about Ethan. I missed his smile, his laugh, and the love we had shared. One day, as I was walking through the market, a rare outing for me, I saw a familiar face. It was Ethan. He looked stronger and more determined than before. At first he didn't see me, but when our eyes met, everything else faded away. "Rosie," he said, his voice filled with both joy and sadness, Ethan, I whispered, tears filling my eyes. We spoke quietly, careful not to draw attention. Ethan told me he had been working hard to find a way to free me. He had sold his paintings, saved every penny, and planned to help me escape. I can't let you do this, I said. George is powerful. He won't let me go easily. I will fight for you, Rosie, he said. You are worth it. That night, for the first time in months, I felt a spark of hope. Ethan's determination gave me strength. Together, we began to plan my escape. Weeks passed as we carefully prepared. Ethan arranged a place for us to live far away where George couldn't find us. On the night of our escape, my heart raced with fear and excitement. I left a letter for George explaining that I could no longer live without love. Ethan was waiting for me in the shadows outside the house. We ran through the quiet streets, holding hands and not looking back. For the first time in months, I felt alive and free. We moved to a small town where no one knew us. Life wasn't easy, but it was filled with love and happiness. I taught art to children, and Ethan continued painting. Every day I was reminded that love and freedom were worth every sacrifice. One day I received a letter from my father. He had managed to recover from his financial troubles. He forgave me for leaving and told me he was proud of my courage. As for George, he moved on, finding another way to rebuild his fortune. Looking back, I realized that life is not a fairy tale. But sometimes, the sacrifices we make lead us to a happiness greater than we ever imagined, and in the end, love always finds a way. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it.